Item Number SCP-6854 Object Class Euclid Special Containment Procedures. All known SCP-6854 instances have been fitted with tracking devices and are contained in hangars 1 through 10 of the Site-44 Anomalous Wildlife Wing. SCP-6854 are to be provided with 150 kilograms of plant and animal matter per day, and all resulting oil and coal products are to be harvested and sold through various Foundation front organizations. Mobile Task Force Moon-9 Wild Wranglers have been tasked with capturing and transporting all wild instances of SCP-6854, as well as administering Class A amnestics to all witnesses. Description: SCP-6854 is a species of biomechanical entities, sparse populations of which are found across the North American continent, superficially reminiscent of domestic cattle, Bos taurus. Instances of SCP-6854 possess external shells comprised of an indeterminate metal alloy, with a consistency similar to that of stainless steel. The interior contains hundreds of shifting cogs and gears of varying size, as well as a rudimentary system of organs composed primarily of vulcanized rubber. All SCP-6854 possess 2 carbon filament light bulbs affixed to the skull, which act as the source of vision. Despite the lack of any apparent power source, these remain lit at all times, excluding during sleep. Locomotion is achieved using 4 small wheels attached at the base of each leg, with mature specimens capable of traveling at speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour. In the wild, SCP-6854 typically restrict their movements to flat, low-lying plains, their wheeled nature causing difficulties in navigating more rugged terrain. Instances of SCP-6854 possess a tail-like appendage attached at the rear, which is capable of floating outwards in a manner similar to an umbrella and deployed during periods of rainfall in order to prevent rusting. SCP-6854 are omnivorous, converting all waste matter into anthracite, hard coal, which is dispensed through a metal flap located at the rear. The mechanics behind the process are poorly understood, and attempts to replicate these results outside of SCP-6854 has thus far been unsuccessful. Both sexes have a set of 2 hollow brass horns, measuring up to 140 centimeters in length. Both horns are maneuverable and are capable of producing and firing multiple rounds of lead bullet through unknown means. Studies have shown SCP-6854 use this ability primarily when hunting prey, as well as when threatened, or in order to establish dominance over a rival mating partner. SCP-6854 are capable of sexual reproduction, with females experiencing a gestation period of around 12 months, and typically producing litters of between 3 and 5 offspring. After giving birth, female SCP-6854 will produce a substance chemically identical to plutonium oil, which is fed to their young through a rubber udder-like appendage. Discovery: the Department of Mythology and Folkloristics have discovered several literary references to SCP-6854, colloquially known as Cogcows or Bos Macunos, all published between 1895 and 1904. These descriptions are found primarily in various fantastical field guides, where they are typically listed alongside various fictitious organisms originating in North American folklore. As a result, most early SCP-6854 sightings went largely ignored by the American Secure Containment Initiative. The earliest confirmed SCP-6854 sightings is credited to American naturalist Elmer T. Hamilton, POI 2645, as pictured. During the spring of 1905, whilst traversing the prairies of Oklahoma, Hamilton witnessed a lone instance of SCP-6854 consuming the remains of a white-tailed deer. While Hamilton made these claims public, his account was reportedly met largely with skepticism and mockery from his peers. In June of 1905, Hamilton and his 20-year-old son, Warren, left their hometown of Longobel with the intention of capturing an instance of SCP-6854 and providing their existence to the wider scientific community. 2 weeks after their departure, Warren Hamilton returned to Longobel, carrying the remains of his father, who had sustained a single fatal gunshot wound to the throat. When interrogated by local authorities, Hamilton reported that 10 days into their journey, the two encountered a female instance of SCP-6854, feeding petroleum oil to its two offspring. Warren said that he found himself unable to kill the entity. His father seized his hunting rifle, directing it at the creature's head. According to his son, before Hamilton could fire, he was promptly struck by a long bullet dispatched from one of the specimen's horns. Longobel authorities noted that Warren was sole heir to his father's estate, and without evidence to support his claims, and was considered the primary suspect of Elmer Hamilton's apparent murder. Warren was subsequently tried and ultimately sentenced to death by hanging. The following morning, a crowd of around 50 civilians amassed to observe Hamilton's execution. All witnesses reported that immediately after the news was dropped, a low-pitched humming noise became audible. A single female instance of SCP-6854 emerged from the nearby prairies and fired a single bullet from its right horn, severing the rope around Hamilton's neck. The entity subsequently departed, and Hamilton, who survived with mild injuries, was formally exonerated of any criminal wrongdoing. This incident has since been covered up by the American Secure Containment Initiative, with all relevant court records and historical documentation confiscated and archived. Since their initial discovery, an additional 12 instances of SCP-6854 have been discovered in the wild, with 15 specimens bred in captivity. It is presently unknown how many additional instances of SCP-6854 exist outside Foundation custody.